Weird Shit I've Seen as a Marine by 035 None. Growing up playing video games and watching war movies, I didn't think twice about joining the Marines so I could be in the infantry. I went through all the training and unwelcome hardship that makes you really reconsider your decision. Anyway, I got stationed to a desert base known as 29 Palms, the largest piece of military-controlled land in the US. It covers approximately 930 square miles in total. It's fucking huge, in Southern Carolina and a few hours from Mexico. When you're out that far, you start to see some shit. Fast forward to my first field op and me losing my shit. To put things in perspective as to how far away we were from civilization, the closest man-made object is a 3-hour ride away. This day was particularly hot because it broke 130 degrees as if the sun said, "I told you I could." So we spent all day hiding under camouflage netting, getting classes about various military tactics. Once the sun set, we set off into the night to get some hard, realistic training done. At night we practice using our night vision optic to do some shit like reloading and reading maps. It produces an image off of ambient infrared light so you can actually see a lot more shit than the naked eye. The sky is absolutely cluttered with stars. I can see a shooting star every few seconds. The Milky Way. It's pretty damn cool. Finally, after roaming around aimlessly for what felt like forever, we head back and were granted a few hours of sleep. I lay down and start to drift off. I'm suddenly woken up after what felt like 10 minutes, and I get up instantly. "Get up, bitch. You're on watch." God damn it. I get dressed and stand my post dutifully like I'm told at the checkpoint. I'm given a radio and told only to lift the barbed wire after it gets approved over the radio. It's maybe around 2 a.m. and everyone else in my company is dead asleep, except for myself and an officer in the comm truck. All I can hear are the coyotes. I decide to start looking at the stars with my night vision. I hear a coyote yelp off in the distance, and I think nothing of it. A few minutes later, another Marine comes over a small hill in front of me. Nothing crazy, probably taking a dump. He walks towards me, but his eyes don't really reflect the light. Rationally, one of us is probably dehydrated, so I think nothing of it. He approaches me, and after a few seconds of staring at me, he simply says, "Can I come in?" His voice didn't sound right. No inflection or questioning tone. Weird. I asked him what his name was and why he was out so far taking a dump. He tells me his name, Sergeant Wright, and he ignores my dump question. Same weird voice. Granted, I'm new to the unit, so I don't know anyone named Sergeant Wright, but I still had to verify it. "Maine, this is Road Guard 1. There is a Sergeant Wright requesting entry, over." "Road Guard 1, this is Maine. There is no Sergeant Wright in this company, and the closest unit is 25 miles away. Make sure..." Shit. "Get the fuck back here right now. Don't let him in, and don't look at him. Just run." As the weird dude started to hear this, his face changed to severely angry, like he wanted to rip my throat out and drink my blood. By the time I got back, everyone is awake. All of the vehicle lights are turned on and everyone's packing up, scrambling into the trucks. We leave a lot of shit behind, like tents, water and food, and drive the entire 3 hours back. I never got an explanation from anyone but my squad leader, who was a simple backwoods kind of guy, who bluntly said that whatever I saw wasn't asking to get through the gate. I never really understood what he meant by that until I discovered creepypasta no sleep. More to come. Trying to do these in chronological order as fast as I can. As you can guess, they get crazier as they go. Okay, so these are all in chronological order, starting with my first day out in the desert, which I've already said. And now for the mountain edition. After my most recent creepy experience with weird-looking people scaring the fuck out of me, we went somewhere much more terrifying. a remote little Marine Corps base called Bridgeport. It's a national forest just north of Yosemite. It was built to train Marines in the art of mountain warfare. There's a lot of mountains. It's cold, it's windy, and if you ever go there, you'll hate your life too. Anyway, when we first get there, we stay in these creepy concrete huts with bunk beds in them. There's a bathroom and some showers, and that's about it. You fight over your outlets to charge your electronics, and there's not really any heat besides a bunch of Marines cramped into one area. The first few days are miserable. Your body has to adjust to the new altitude. The air has less oxygen, so physical work and exercise plays out in slow motion. Oh, and you're constantly tired and all you want to do is sleep. There isn't much in terms of fresh food, and things can get pretty bleak if you have the wrong mindset. You wouldn't believe me if I told you that these were the better times. Eventually, we march into the mountains carrying our ridiculously heavy packs, stuffed to the brim with warming layers, food, water, and nicotine. The first few days were easy. We would hike all day and stop to rest and learn a few things on survival and such. There was some snow in the lower parts, but not a ton, thankfully. Around the fourth night, someone had the awesome idea of making us practice our nighttime navigation skills. I am a pretty decent navigator myself, so I was up for the challenge. No big deal. They hand out the compasses, maps, and protractors, and set up an elaborate system of how to get to the finish line. It was staggered so people weren't walking all over each other. This is where things get interesting. I'm in the woods. It's dark and cold. I hate my life, so I'm stumbling through the trees and brush loud as hell without a care in the world. I just want to finish this dumb training so I can go to sleep. I get to the first point easily because there was some moonlight shining through the trees. The second one was a place in a fucking river, and I still remember how livid I was standing in the river, copying down the word donkey etched into an ammo can on the top of the rock. In a freezing cold river. Wet boots will drive a man insane. I stop to squeeze out the moisture from my socks, and I get this primal feeling that I'm being watched. I stand completely still, and all I can hear is my heart beating. No wind or wildlife, just me. My first thought is that it's a Marine trying to piggyback off my success. I put my soggy boots back on and do what anyone would do. I crest the next hill and stop so I could listen. Nothing. Maybe I'm just freaking the fuck out. Screw this. I keep walking. 10 minutes later, and I get the same feeling. Any rookie stalker knows that you have to match the person's steps so they don't hear you. So I start to randomly stop or change my step. After a few wholehearted tries, I don't hear any footsteps. But I do hear breathing. If it's a mountain lion or something crazy, I have no choice but to keep walking and hope I can pull out my dull Gerber knife out in time. About this time, I get to the third point and plot my final point. It's near a road, so I cut straight east and literally book it up the road. I still felt like I was being followed the entire time, but I felt safer because I could hear the low roar of a Humvee engine up the road. Looking back, I led whatever it was right to the rest of us. That was a dumb mistake. Nothing else happened that night. Everyone else gives up and just uses the roads to make it back to camp. Those who don't make it back are told to walk towards the sound of the beeping horn. Funny. I finally get to sleep in the safety of numbers. We use the next day to remediate our nighttime land nav skills and refuel our bodies with food. Once the sun sets, we march off into the mountains in a file. Unfortunately, since I carry a rocket launcher, my natural position is in the back, but not the very last, so that's a positive. We spend the early night hiking. We're moving very fast and probably 20 meters spaced apart. At times, it was common to lose sight of each other. All of us were slowly getting exhausted. Suddenly, shit just gets dark. Like the ambient light is just being absorbed. I get the same primal fear. Extreme silence? Yep. Fuck. I keep walking without a word until I hear someone, probably the guy behind me, call my name. I turn around, and he looks at me like I'm an idiot. What the fuck? Keep going, dude. They're gonna lose us. Okay, weird. Who called my name? I spin back around and try to see my way through the brush for the guy in front of me. I get a glimpse of him and discreetly yell at him to slow down, but he doesn't even hear me. What the fuck? About the same time, I hear from behind me, "Dude, what the fuck is that?" I hear the light rustling of leaves and some twigs, but that's it. I run maybe 15 meters, which isn't far, but at night it is. There's nothing but this pack on the ground and his rifle. I call out his name. Nothing. I reach for my radio. It's dead. I turn on both of my flashlights. Dead. Fuck, fuck, fuck. I start yelling. I blow my rape whistle that they made me pack. Nothing. I don't know how long it took them to realize I was missing, and how they backtracked their way to me, but it felt like hours. I could feel whatever it was just out there waiting, fucking toying with me. I told them everything, and they were convinced that this guy just got lost. They all spread out to look for him for a few hours, but ultimately came up with nothing. Sometime the next morning, one of the hippie park volunteers found him 30 kilometers away across multiple mountains. He was bleeding from his ears and didn't even know his name. Of course, he was in extreme hypothermia and had a ton of bruises on him, but no severe bleeding. They ended up getting a helicopter to take him to the closest hospital. Following the mysterious incident, I was told that I was going to be sent down the mountain to answer a few questions. To be honest, I was relieved. It was cold and I didn't want to hike anymore. Everyone else in my company just sort of believed what they were told. He came down with mountain sickness and just walked 30 kilometers over the course of a few hours. I tried to tell a few people about all the crazy shit I'd been noticing, just to make sure I'm not going crazy. Before anyone could respond, my squad leader pulled me aside and told me, "Don't talk about these things, okay?" Maybe he knew something I didn't. But yeah, cool, they just sent us up here, knowing something was fucking off. Typical military bullshit. Just stick our heads in the sand and pretend everything's great. I was glad I was leaving for a few days, but there was nothing but complete dread whenever the idea of coming back entered my mind. The Humvee to take me back down finally showed up, and the ride was uneventful. They took me to a small, concrete office-like building. The military police guys were just like me, and had to do a job. They got a statement of me, and asked if I had noticed anything unusual about the guy before he disappeared. Nope. Seemed normal to me. Then the NCIS guys came in. I've dealt with them before over something else, and they're usually good-natured guys. But not these ones. Brisk, to the point, and methodical. They read off all the facts about the case like they were reading nutrition info on a cereal box. Unsurprised and monotone. They'd definitely seen this before. They asked the same questions. When I had told them about all the creepy things I had noticed, they told me I was probably suffering from mountain sickness too. I was beyond pissed, but I knew better than to argue with them. Another thing. They asked me if I had taken any pictures that day. I told them I didn't, but I thought that was strange. Next, they asked if they could swab my boots. To this day, I am honestly confused as to why the hell they would do that. I don't know if they were fucking with me or if it was something else. My only assumption was that this thing alters the surrounding area on a microscopic level. Maybe there was an isotope it produces that may have stayed on my boots. I have no clue, but if anyone has any similar stories or information on why they did that, please let me know. At the conclusion of my interview, they made me sign a document stating that I wouldn't talk about anything and that they would contact me when I was free to disclose any information. This was a few years ago, and they never got back to me. So it may not be legal to talk now. But I have an ace card up my sleeve, and I'm not going to talk about it. So I walked back to our fabulous 5-star concrete huts to get some sleep. Thankfully, I wasn't alone, as there were a few guys that stayed back because they had sickle cell anemia and could actually die if they went above a certain altitude. I took one of the best hot showers I've ever taken in my life and headed to my bunk. I was exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. Now, I rarely smoke, but I still carry a pack on me just to make lucrative trades or sell them to desperate nicotine feeds in the field. I felt like now was a good time to smoke, so I went outside. Maybe it would calm me down. All was going well, until that dreadful feeling came back again. Shit, the tree line was maybe 40 meters away. I don't know how the hell it followed me or why. Could there be more than one? I stomped out my cigarette and went back inside. I managed to calm myself down and fall asleep, but I would always wake up suddenly after maybe 10 minutes. No dreams, just the overwhelming feeling that you're being observed. The next day I packed all my gear into the Humvee and helped the driver load some stuff into the back. The drive was uneventful and I managed to catch some sleep, only to be woken up by the rough terrain here and there. When we finally arrived, it was almost afternoon and the company was preparing to cover some serious terrain that day. Just my luck. Before I knew it, we were trundling up a steep mountainside. I didn't think it could get any worse until it began to sleet heavily. It was bad. The wind picked up and it felt like we were being cut with glass. I couldn't see, people were getting lost and the rocks were slippery. We hiked for hours upon hours and I swear these mountains were trying to kill us. The sun began to set and our clothes began to freeze on us. If that wasn't bad enough, I noticed that our compasses were acting strange. No matter how hard you tried, you would eventually end up walking towards the base of a particular mountain that was named Devil's Incline on our map. This was a military map that someone had made in the 1980s. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Coincidentally, I got the same feeling of being stalked again. Fuck. Anyway, our guides get us to the right destination. A place called Sardine Rock. As soon as we stop, people start shaking violently because they were no longer hiking and producing zero body heat. Someone was smart enough to predict this and had 2-man tents driven up to our rendezvous point on a massive truck. We rarely use tents, but this was literally a life or death situation. To make things worse, the wind picked up and it started to downpour violently. You couldn't hear yourself talk. It was chaos. If you've ever set up a tent in the wind, you'll know how impossible it is. By the time we had everything staked in, the tent had a few inches of water at the bottom. Our sleeping systems are waterproof, but our entire bodies were soaked to the bone, so they eventually became wet from the outside in. Then the temperature dropped, and things got worse. Being in the military, you always have someone on watch. Since there was still sunlight out, I volunteered to stand it whilst everyone else hid in their tents. The picture you're seeing now is a picture I asked a friend to take, just to illustrate my misery. My Gore-Tex rain jacket is completely soaked through. Worst day of my life. Finally, I got back inside my tent and tried to get some rest. I don't remember falling asleep, but I was suddenly woken up to someone outside asking for help. It was the same voice of the guy who ended up 30 kilometers away, except that guy is still in the hospital. He would call out someone's name and say it a few times and try to get them outside. I think it was my squad leader who yelled at everyone to stay the fuck in our tents and not to go outside. For the next few minutes, he practically begged us. It sounded like he was in the tree line maybe 20 meters away. somehow guessing our names. Here it was, trying to break us down when we were at our lowest point. It could have gotten through our tents, but it wanted to fuck with us. Finally it stopped, and just as I thought it was gone, I heard it say my name twice, in a kind of haunting tone. And then a huge tree came tumbling down, and that was it. Thanks, Dick. Traumatized, everyone stayed inside their tents until we heard the trucks coming. Over the radio, we were told to pack our tents in less than 30 seconds and get on the trucks. We have no more than 5 minutes. I wasn't going to be the first one to step outside, so I waited until a good number of people got out. I've never seen a group of people move faster in my life. The tents were stuffed into their bags, poles bent, and bags were halfway on our bodies. People practically stumbled into the trucks. We were told that we were being evacuated due to terrible conditions, and that we were heading back to base. But we all knew the real reason. I was relieved to be out of the cold, but we were still on this damn mountain, and that thing would still be able to find us. When we got back, we all showered and got into dry clothes. No one talked. They just went to sleep and tried to understand what had gone down that day. Each and every single one of us realizing that we would likely go back up there in a few days.